What's up, everybody? So here is my full review of Star Wars The Last Jedi. Spoiler free, of course. I will be doing a spoiler filled video later on in the week, but for right now, I'm giving my full thoughts on this movie and what I thought after a second viewing and letting it marinate for a little bit, because like I said in my initial reactions video, I really wanted to wait and see after I saw this movie a second time to give my full just review and my thoughts on it, because I felt I needed to see this movie again, because there's so many things get thrown at you in this movie that I feel like a lot of people can get turned off by, because I feel like after watching this the first time, I had gone into this movie expecting it to go a certain way as a huge Star Wars fan, and I had built this movie up in my head like I wanted to go this way and things that I wanted to see. I sort of got not let down, but something else got thrown at me, and it didn't meet my expectations to what I think where the galaxy needed to go, and I didn't know what to think, and I really wanted to wait until I got that second viewing in and let it marinate a bit more. And I'm glad that I did that, because after seeing this movie a second time, the things that I really loved about it got even better, and the issues I had with it before the first viewing didn't bother me as much. There are still certain things that I just don't like about this film, but overall, this movie went from being a good movie in my eyes to a great movie. And one of the things that I really like about this movie is that it takes new chances with the story and different aspects of the Star Wars galaxy, and I could see this being a place where Star Wars fans sort of get divided, and like if you're on board with the new things that Rian Johnson is introducing to the Star Wars universe, you're gonna really like this film. But if you're like other fans, just like, no, I don't like that, you're not gonna end up liking this movie. And I said it in my initial reactions video, if you're expecting a movie like The Force Awakens or even Rogue One, you're gonna be disappointed with this movie, because it is so different in how it approaches the lore of Star Wars. And I ate it up. The things that Luke is going through and the things that Rey discovers and Ren discovers, for that matter, it's just so different from any other Star Wars film that we've seen, and I like the directions that they're going with it. I'm really curious to see where J.J. Abrams is going to take this story from here. And I want to start right off the bat with Mark Hamill, like I did in my initial reactions video. I thought he was really good in this movie. He was fantastic as Luke Skywalker, a very different Luke Skywalker than we got in past movies. I think that he is the best I've ever seen him in this film. I know he has a really good voice acting career outside of Star Wars, as you know, obviously the Joker from the Batman animated series and a whole bunch of other voices that he's done in the past, but this is the best I've ever seen him in. I think he really committed himself to this role and this new path that Luke Skywalker is on. I think that he really did give that justice, and what he was going through, what he continues to go through throughout this movie. I thought Mark Hamill did a fantastic job, and he really played off of Daisy Ridley as Rey. Oh my God, Daisy Ridley is so good in this role. I love her as Rey, and her best scenes happen in this aspect of the film that was my favorite part, and I'll get more in depth about it in my spoiler discussion, because I can't talk about it without spoiling a huge part of the movie. But aside from Luke, she was the character that I connected to the most. I really empathized with what she was going through this movie, and she's trying to fill this void in her life with certain characters and certain things, and she's just one of those characters that I gravitated to, and a lot of that had to do with what Daisy Ridley was doing with the character, and I love her in this role. I don't think you could have casted anybody better than Daisy Ridley for the role of Rey. And since we've talked about the light, we have to talk about the dark with Adam Driver as Kylo Ren. I love this character, and I love Adam Driver's portrayal of this character, and I know a lot of people say that he's whiny and he just complains all the time. I would sort of say that he's driven by his passions, which is indicative of a dark force user or a Sith. I love the inner turmoil and conflict that he goes through in both The Force Awakens that carries over into this film, and to me, he's just trying to always prove himself to like the First Order and to Snoke, and also to himself. He just wants to validate himself in the dark side, and he's just continually trying to do that through the last and this film, and I just can't wait to see where they take this character in this next saga film. And I talked about it a little bit in my last video with Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia, or General Leia Organa, in this movie, and it's heartbreaking to know that we're never going to get to see Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia ever again. And it's just, I talked about it a little bit again in my last video, that there's this one scene that comes off a completely different way now, and it's just bittersweet. And I'll talk about it a bit more in my spoiler video. But overall, where I think they took the character of Leia, I really enjoyed what they did with her character. I mean, she gets a little bit more to do in this movie, and you can tell that Rian Johnson wanted to stay true to her character, but there's also moments where you can see kind of Carrie Fisher shining through the dialogue. Another character that I really want to point out is Poe Dameron. I mean, he gets a lot more to do in this film, and he has this story arc that I found really enjoyable, and there's certain parts of that story where I think they could have handled it differently. And without spoiling it, there's a certain part of his story arc that I feel that they could have just solved in like just one piece of dialogue or one scene. But I understand what they're going for with the scene, because it helps him become a certain way in the movie without spoiling it. It's a lesson that he has to learn through this story. And I can get the complaint that people are having, but I also understand what Rian Johnson was trying to do with this character. But overall, he has this great story arc that I thought that it's great for his character going forward into the next film. And like I mentioned at the top of this video, there's things about this movie that I really loved, and I'll get more into detail in my spoiler video. But then there are also things that I just don't like about this film, and some of it I kind of like. It doesn't bother me as much anymore after seeing it a second time. But there are other things that I still don't like. And one of the things that just I could have done with less was the humor in this film. A lot of people like a lot of humor in their films, especially in like Disney or Marvel properties. Like, they're getting really full of humor, and I could see that sort of bleeding into the Star Wars films now, is that this is where I think it's kind of getting Disneyfied with that lighter tone of humor. There's a lot of humor in this movie, and sometimes it really hits, and other times it didn't work for me. And I just could have done with less. And I said it in my first video that I feel The Force Awakens did humor perfectly. Like, the characters weren't just cracking jokes. The moment just happened to be humorous. In this movie, characters are purposely telling jokes, and there are times that it worked for certain characters, and then there are other times it's just it sort of like downplayed the dramatic moment. And I really wish they sort of just would have just let it be with certain characters and certain moments. But there are other times where it's just like, did we really need that? And the same with the dialogue. There's some points where they just had to have that last like quippy jab in the scene, and it didn't feel right. It felt out of place, and it's just those are the things that just didn't bother me as much the second time around. But the thing that I still just don't like about this movie is the whole Rose and Finn story arc. I mean, side note, I love the character of Finn. I really like the introduction of Rose in this movie. Kelly Marie Tran and John Boyega, their performances are fantastic with these characters. I just wish they had something better to do in this film, because to me it just felt like a complete side journey that was almost unnecessary to have, and it felt to me like this story was put in there just so that Finn and Rose had something to do in the movie. Because to me it felt like the more important storyline was with Rey and Luke, and then this whole thing with Finn and Rose was just there. I'm not gonna go too into depth with this because I don't want to spoil anything, but like I feel like you can't just cut this portion out because it ties back into the main narrative, and like to cut it out would be like, well, it wouldn't make sense for it just to not be there. I just think that they could have gone a different way of doing it. I understand there are things in this story point that I completely get where they're going for. It's just the execution wasn't that great, and I wish they would have just tweaked it a bit in the writing, just to have a little bit more gravity to the story and not just directly tie in, if that makes any sense. So in the end, this movie is, in my opinion, very divisive. With the group of friends that I went to go see it with, half of us liked it, half of us didn't. And I think that has a lot to do with what kind of Star Wars fan are you. If you're open to the new direction that Rian Johnson was taking this story, you're really gonna like it. But if you're sort of like, no, I don't like that, you're just not gonna like this movie, period. Like I said before, it's not a whole lot like The Force Awakens or Rogue One for that matter. This is its own new, different take on the lore of Star Wars. For me, there are certain things that I absolutely love about this movie. I love the new direction that they're going, where they're taking the lore, but there are other things that still hold this movie back for me. And for those reasons, I'm giving Star Wars The Last Jedi 4 out of 5 stars. So now it's your turn. If you saw Star Wars The Last Jedi, let me know what you thought of it in the comment section below. Please do be respectful of those who have not seen the movie just yet. I know it's the Monday after the movies come out, but there are people in the real world that can't see movies the weekend they come out. They'll either wait till the next weekend or the weekend after to see it. So please try to keep the comment section free of spoilers. If you enjoyed watching this video, please give it a like and share it while you're at it. There's more Star Wars videos to come on this very movie. Spoiler videos coming, I promise. So be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of those. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.